You're listening to Al Pastor, the show that helps you love God, love your neighbor, and eat more tacos. I'm your host, Pastor Brian. Welcome to the show. Well, hello. I'm back at it with another episode. We're going to be covering Exodus chapter 25, verses 23 through 30. In the previous episodes, we've been talking about the Ark of the Covenant. That was the first thing that God told Moses to make. That was the Ark. That is very, very important, very special. The most important place in the tabernacle. Why? Because that's the place where God was. Now we transition out of the holy place, and just outside of the Holy of Holies, here is the next thing that is instructed to Moses. So let's read it in Exodus 25, verses 23 through 30. He says, "You shall make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long and 1 cubit wide and 1.5 cubits high. You shall overlay it with pure gold and make a gold border around it. You shall make for it a rim and a handbreadth around it, and you shall make a gold border for the rim around it. You shall make 4 gold rings for it and put the rings on the 4 corners, which are on its 4 feet. The rings shall be close to the rim as holders for the poles to carry the table. You shall make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold so that with them the table may be carried. You shall make its dishes and its pans and its jars and its offering bowls to which to pour drink offerings. You shall make them of pure gold. You shall set the bread of the presence on the table before me at all times." So right off the bat, we need to note some of the similarities between the way that the table was built and the way that the ark was built. First and foremost, they're both made of what? Acacia wood. They are both covered in gold. Both have some crown molding around it. Both pieces of furniture had rings and poles for carrying it. There are some differences, though. The table, unlike the ark, the carrying poles for the table were removable. So even though the table is a holy place, it's not as holy as the ark. This is also signified through the location. The ark is in the Holy of Holies, and the table is just on the outside. Now, like most of the tabernacle furnishings, the table for the bread is not that big. This is important because it helps us see that the tabernacle is not this huge, massive operation. The building's true message or magnificent is in its message, not in how big it was. And this is also true of the table. I mean, when you really break this down, the table is the size of a coffee table. It's about 3 foot long, 1.5 feet wide, less than 3 foot tall. And the table's encircled by a rim, the crown molding. If the rim's at the top, it's presumed that this is to, keep what was on the table from falling off. And there are also some different names for the table as well. For instance, here in Exodus, it's just simply called the table, or another place, this table. Numbers calls it the table of the presence. In Leviticus, it's called the table of pure gold. In 2 Chronicles, it's called the ceremonially clean table, but the most elaborate title actually comes from 1 Kings. It describes the table this way. It says that it is the golden table on which was the bread of the presence. That's in 1 Kings 7:48. That title that we find in 1 Kings is actually helps us identify the most important thing about the table. And what would that be? What was on the table? So the table, the most holy place, held the 12 loaves of sacred bread. Now, of course, there's other plates and dishes and pitchers and bowls, and these were used in the various different offerings that would be conducted on the outside of the most holy place. So they would go out into the court and they would perform those rituals. But again, we want to focus on the bread. Now, nothing is said here in Exodus about how the bread is used. We do get some more information, and it's actually found in Leviticus 24, 5 through 9. I'm not going to read that right now, but they would set them into 2 rows, and there would be 6 in each row. A couple of different ways that people interpret that. They literally see them spread out in rows, but most likely they were stacked into 2 piles of 6 each. And the way these loaves were, they're not loaves in the modern sense, like, hey, I'm going to go down and get a loaf of, Wonder Bread or sandwich bread. These were actually like large round cakes. We do know that it was made of flour. Obviously, it would be unleavened flour. They would be baked into 12 loaves. Each one would contain 1/5 of an ephah of flour. So that's about 4 quarts. So these would be about 12 inches in diameter and about 4 inches thick. In other words, this loaf of bread would be enough to feed a family. Highly significant. So this bread would sit on the table of the bread of the presence, a golden table within the tabernacle. I'm going to end it on this part, and then I'm going to do another podcast on what does this all mean? What is the symbolism? What is the significance of all that? So we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to Al Pastor with Brian Overturf. If you found value in this, please subscribe and get updates most places podcasts are available. We're right here on Anchor FM through Spotify, also on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. I hope you'll tune in for the next episode. Until then, we'll see you later.